Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Tuesday, August 26, 2025, and underreporting of DC crime. Apparently, Washington, D.C. had a very high crime rate, one of the highest crime rates in the country, and yet it was underreported. Even with that high crime rate, it was still underreported by a massive amount. And I think similar things are happening in Canada. Crimes are being reclassified. People aren't reporting them. One of the things that was happening was murders were reported as accidents, things like that. And so I think that similar magicking away the crime stats are happening in Canada to justify or to protect the Liberals or protect the regime, to allow them to continue doing what they're doing. Because if we knew how bad it really was, we would never tolerate it, never have tolerated it whatsoever. Trump fires a Federal Reserve governor, one of the lieutenant governors or something like that, and people are saying he can't do that. And the answer in response is, if he can't do that, then the whole Federal Reserve structure is unconstitutional and it can't stand. So that's interesting. That's interesting. I've got an Ostrich update for you. This whole thing, this story is just playing with my emotions. So wild and crazy stuff going on there. They're still alive, so that's good. But I said, why isn't there an underground railroad for the ostriches? And maybe they're building one right now. So that's interesting. 1 year in jail for burning an American flag, says Trump. And well, we'll talk about that at the end of the show, because everybody's losing their mind. But there are people out there who are saying, here's the text of what he's actually signing, and it's not as bad as you think it is. So interesting there. $130 million went into nothing at all, when it was supposed to help small business startups start their business, right? And by starting a business in Canada, you then churn money for the economy. People pay you for something, and then you buy other things, and that churns the economy, right? And you buy things to provide people with the service or product that you're doing, and then maybe you hire people, and it gets to be a bigger business, and you scale, and so on and so forth. They want to stimulate small businesses so that all of that happens. But instead of actually doing that, they took $130 million and they pretended to start businesses, but they didn't. They just gave it out to businesses that had already been started. So that's super weird, right? So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Blacklock's reporter is reporting this ministry, I don't know which ministry it is, sorry. The Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada and Minister Mary Ng faked success stories in a $130 million small biz giveaway that resulted in 0 startups and 0 net job creation. These would have been useful, right? So $130 million that didn't actually go to anybody who needed it. Weird, right? Blacklock's takes a quote out of this. The fund is working for women entrepreneurs and businesses. It has helped 500 women start new businesses, according to Mary Ng. That's a quote attributed to her. According to the audit, there were 322 businesses were accepted to the program at a cost of $130.3 million. All 322 were already in business. Funds did not go to new businesses for startup. So, that's, if you're already in business, you are not eligible for this program. Maybe there should be another program for businesses that need, a bridging kind of help in that startup phase. But maybe the business just deserves to die and shouldn't get taxpayer money, because maybe they haven't figured out what their customer is, who they're serving, what the product needs to be. You know what I mean? So Ryan says cabinet faked success stories. $130 million subsidy fund promised new startups and jobs. Auditors found 0 startups, 0 net jobs, yet Trudeau's trade minister bragged about success. Taxpayer money wasted. Canadians deserve accountability. Yeah, but we're not going to get any kind of accountability, unfortunately. That's not great. And he continues, he says, the report found not a single verified startup, no net job creation, $130 million gone with nothing to show for it. Even auditors admitted the success stories cabinet bragged about didn't exist. Canadians are paying for Liberal photo ops, not results. Somebody sent me, and I don't know if I have it actually, I don't remember putting it up, but the fentanyl czar doesn't have any authority. And he's quoted as saying, I don't have any authority. Sometimes the links don't work, so it's not anybody's fault. I'm just remembering that this happened. So pretty wild stuff, right? They put up fake things. They tell us that these success stories, they hold up success stories that are just made up, photo ops and things like that. And that's all the fentanyl czar is as well. And they're admitting it. And we're paying for it. That's our tax dollars. We're supposed to be using those tax dollars to solve real problems, and we don't. Why not? Why not? Stacy says $323 million to a vaccine factory that never produced a single vaccine and is now closed down. $400 million green slush fund with 186 conflict of interest found by the Auditor General. $19 million to two guys for building Arrive scam middleman. Now another $130 million pissed away. When do struggling Canadians say enough is enough? How much did, who was it, Frank Bayless? Was it Frank Bayless who got the money for the ventilators, right? And then they were sold for scrap. How much money was that? That was like $200 million, wasn't it? During the COVID times, right? That's not even that long ago. I can't even believe we're barreling into 2026, right? Like I feel like 2025 is kind of analogous of 1995, right? And 1995 was like a middling year. I don't know. There's personalities to years and there's similarities in my head. Anyway, it's pretty wild what's going on, and we are wasting all sorts of money, and nobody's ever held accountable. Not from 5 years ago for useless ventilators, not for $130 million waste now. Nobody ever held accountable. Nobody. It's so crazy. Here is more monetary news and Canada's missteps. We sell LNG to the United States that they then sell on to Poland at a much higher price. And this guy's saying, yeah, well, we'd really like to make a deal and pay less for that natural gas. That'd be great. But the United States is selling it to us right now for a much higher price. Here we go.
Remember, our former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau kind of famously said there was no business case to sell Canadian LNG to Europe. Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at what the Americans are doing, they sent 44 million tons of LNG to Europe last year. They're obviously seeing a business case for what they're producing. Mm-hmm. Is Poland interested in Canada's natural resources and LNG in particular? Is that something that you would like to see advance as these two countries get closer together?
Yeah. Well, remember, some of that LNG that is coming from United States to Europe, to Poland, is also Canadian LNG. But it's being sold for a much higher price, I would say, than when it would come from Canada. Yes, we are constantly interested. We would like the Canadian LNG market to open to Europe. We would like to see the Canadian gas flowing to the east coast on Canada, and the Canadian gas flowing in European pipelines. This is, one of the energy topics that we are working on with Canadians for a number of years. There are others which are also very significant, and we are much more successful in the other areas than gas so far. But if you're able to make a push in that regard, that will be to the benefit of Europe, and that will be to the benefit of Canada.
Yeah. Yep. So they won't do it. Darn shucks. Right. He wants Canadian LNG. They still want Canadian LNG. They're saying, we're paying a huge markup. If we could just make a deal with you guys, that'd be great. Do you guys have a terminal in Eastern Canada that we could just hook up to yet? No, not yet. Okay. Andy Lee says taxpayers gave $2.6 million to Dave Eby's United Front lobby, the United Chinese Community Enrichment Services Society, under the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy. This sounds like it rhymes with what Mary Ng was doing. The organization was listed as an affiliate of the Overseas China Affairs Office, and she's got receipts, and she's responding to Blacklock's talking about the 500 women businesses, new startups, blah, 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 blah. It's interesting because it could be all part of the same song, right? This could be all part of the same strategy, taking money and wasting it across different levels of government, because there's one taxpayer, you and me, right? And we get to carry all that debt. Brian Lilly is reporting Christian is savage in his comments here, but absolutely correct. Not much meat on the bone for Carney's trip. This is our grab bag of governance. And he says, not much meat on the bones for Carney's trip. What did he get? And the first minute's pretty savage, so we'll listen to it. Here we go.
Context. Christian Leuprecht is standing by. He's a military analyst, senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and the Center for North American Prosperity and Security. Good to see you, Christian, on this Monday. Your take on this visit by Mark Carney to Ukraine, Poland, and eventually to Germany.
Well, look, our big announceable on this visit was that we signed a customs agreement with Ukraine. And we re-announced drones that we had already announced on the occasion of the G7. This is why Canada is not being taken seriously. We may make these types of commitments. These are places that, spending commitments that we might get to. We might grow the Canadian Armed Forces. I do think the Prime Minister has a serious commitment, but it's telling that the Prime Minister, of course, is traveling alone. There's no other European leaders there with him in Ukraine. He was not there at the White House with 7 other European leaders backing Zelensky. It suggests that we have a very large lag to make up for to show that indeed Canada is a country that should have a voice at the table.
What more would you like to see?
A recommitment to the foreign policy instruments in this country. And the way I always sum this up is we've been fighting against the terrain. We should be able to shape the terrain. We shaped the terrain significantly in the aftermath of the Second World War and into the 1950s and 60s, realizing that ultimately we needed to assert our interests. In this very volatile world, it seems to me that we're constantly reacting. And the reason that we're reacting is that we have become significant on the radar of our allies for what we're not doing or not able to do.
Not doing and not able to do. Yeah, we're kind of a joke on the world stage. Like it's even if we could militarily support Ukraine, how many tanks could we send? Didn't we try and send tanks not too long ago and we only had 2 or 3 serviceable? And so did we send them? 2 or 3, here's 2 or 3 tanks. They're the only ones that work. We hope we don't get into any issues between now and the time where we can fix up other tanks of ours. So, and planes, what planes, right? Like we don't have a serviceable military that can back up Ukraine. And here's Mark Carney. Well, here's Maxime Bernier responding to Mark Carney. Mark Carney says, Ukraine's fight is our fight. Sure isn't. No, it isn't. And Maxime Bernier says, no, it's not. Let's focus on our own problems. And this is shocking. The first time I heard this, as I was sitting here in my studio by myself, I said, what? Out loud. Here we go.
My message today is simple. Canada will always stand in solidarity with Ukraine because your cause, freedom, democracy, sovereignty, is our cause. And your history informs our history. And when that peace comes, and it will come, that day will come, Canada will be there. Mr. President, in the last of those paintings I referred to, those Kurolik paintings, a keen eye can see in the distance a mushroom cloud, a bomb.
What?
It's a reminder that peace, when it comes,
I just think it's an interesting invocation of mushroom cloud in the middle of this speech of peace and all the other stuff. And he's saying in the painting you can see it off in the distance. I still think it's weird imagery to shoehorn in there unnecessarily.
can never be taken for granted. And it's a reminder to Canadians that we are connected, that your fight is our fight, that your struggle is our cause, and that your independence will be our victory. Slava Ukraini.
Huh. Right? The Canadian Prime Minister, everybody. He's really, really focused on Ukraine and mushroom clouds. So, yeah, let's not focus on Ukraine. It's not our war, not our problem. And it's interesting that he stands alone. He's by himself. No other European leaders. Everybody's at the White House doing important things that we weren't invited to. So if you could go to the White House, I'm sure you would, but you can't. So you go do other things. So Arthur says, Canada have committed $22 billion to Ukraine for the largest per capita contribution into the G7. Meanwhile, here are Canada's serviceable military assets. Tanks, 45 to 50, which is not enough to do anything really on the front lines. Drones, 40 to 45. Yay! Jets, 35 to 89, 35 of 89 serviceable. So we've got 35 jets, but if we send you 35 jets, we don't have any jets. So submarines, 4. Ships, 37 total. So the Navy is more robust than I thought. So good job. Good job, Mark Norman, for the asterisks. Mark Carney says, Ukraine is on the front line in the struggle for freedom and sovereignty. After 3 years at war, Ukrainians urgently need more military equipment. Canada is answering that call, providing $2 billion for drones, armored vehicles, and other critical resources. We're building the Ukraine's military instead of building our military, and I don't understand how that makes any kind of sense whatsoever, because that sounds absolutely effing bonkers to me. Here is the Ostrich Farm update, and Drea says, Ostrich Farm news, they're still alive. Yay! This is an emotional roller coaster that I just can't take. A flock of 400 healthy ostriches in Edgewood, BC survived the weekend despite the CFIA's open cull order being back on. Katie explains the farm's next steps, including international efforts. And I haven't listened to this. It's a minute long. Okay, we'll listen to it because, apologies, I haven't listened to it. It's been busy. Summertime. Here we go.
Let's take you back to when you heard the ruling. What was going through your mind?
Disappointment, but at the same time we have feelings that are intertwined with hope and fear. So there's fear that we have these amazing natural resilient ostriches that stand behind us for healthy for 221 days. And then that natural immunity is a factor here. We have natural immunity, herd immunity, and antibodies. It's proof that nature works, and we are a recovered flock. So I think that's where the fear is that if these animals could be culled without any second thought on that, what really is in store for other agricultural farmers and animals along the way. So it was very disappointing, but it also gave us hope, because now we have a verdict. Now we understand what we need to do. We understand where their thought process is at, and we're going to try to collaborate and still work with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and our Minister of Health, Heath MacDonald.
So they're going to try and work with these people and try and figure it out, I guess. I hope. Fingers crossed. I don't know. Here's Jagmeet Singh, and I think this is an audition. So behind the scenes from that Punjabi video we showed yesterday where they're beating up the white guy, this is Jagmeet Singh auditioning for said video. I guess this is real. Canada Proud says, can someone check on Jagmeet Singh and find out why he's uploading videos like this? I don't actually think that he's auditioning for that video. I was just making a joke. Here's Jagmeet Singh boxing or something, and it's being weird. Please stop this. I feel like if other politicians who weren't Sikh did this, people might take offense. I don't know. Here we go.
Like this. What's your name? Creed. Like this.
I don't get it. Is that Creed in the background? The Rocky sequel reboot thing that they did? Page Wizard Games is sharing this. Hey, you Manitoba, why are you allowing prescribed doctrine to be installed over faculty? Other perspectives means EDI, or like diversity, equity, inclusion, aligned, shown by faculty hiring ads. I wrote an open letter to Dr. Gerard about this in 2023 and to leadership. So this is the ad. I'll just show you what's going on here at the University of Manitoba, thanks to Page Wizard Games. Appreciate it, man. And they're just talking about shoehorning this crap in over top of, I don't want to say settled science necessarily, but over top of things we know how to do well. Now we have to bring in all of these other conflicting ideas and then figure out how to integrate them all. And it doesn't make any sense. Here we go.
Within our department, we are strongly committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We make sure that all of our faculty and all of our students are supported in every way that we can, and ways in which we can recognize and address these inherent biases in the systems that we create and employ. Because a lot of groups like this has this historical bias that sort of has brought us to where we are. An awful lot of old cis straight white men like myself are fundamental to the creation of this discipline. And it is critically important to make sure that more perspectives are brought to bear to solve the important problems of the world.
Why are more perspectives needed to be brought to bear to solve the important problems of the world? If you have a better mousetrap, present your better mousetrap. Otherwise, refine the current mousetrap until you've got something functional, and then enjoy the functional mousetrap. Why do we need to have perspective? Because what's his name? Steve Jobs created the iPhone, I think, or not the iPhone, the iPod, basically by himself. And then people came in and showed him other prototypes. And if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, you can never get anything done. Certainly not anything very, very fine, etc. And so it's one of those things where just bringing people in with no reason to bring them in. Like this person created X, Y, Z. We need to figure out how they did that so well so we can better refine our process, right? Sure, do that. But bringing people in with no real idea for why, and then throwing a whole bunch of money at them, they're going to try and justify them being there. That's why also DEI hires people who are looking for diversity, equity, and inclusion. They look for problems that justify them being paid their salary. And so all of this is just nonsense. All of this is to destabilize whatever job that it's being shoehorned into, whatever discipline, whatever people are learning here. And apologies, I don't know exactly which thing which specific program this is, but my gosh, like everybody's being put under this spell, and it doesn't help. It doesn't make the program better. It really doesn't. Here's the last one for the stream today. This is an NDP hopeful, and this is akin to arson is peaceful speech, right? This is burning buildings down is sometimes necessary in a peaceful society to protest the tyranny that, Donald Trump represents type deal. This is kind of akin to that. So this is talking about death to the IDF, which is something that this guy posted online, and he's being called out by Alexa Lavoie. And it's just interesting because I think you can justify anything. Like this guy believes, I think, that what he's saying is a peaceful thing, and I don't think that it is a peaceful thing. And I just think the juxtaposition is really interesting to pay attention to because these people want to lead us. Here we go.
I believe that death to the IDF is a hate speech.
Death to the IDF is a non-violent speech. That's what death to the IDF is signifying. It's a call of peace-loving people.
Right, so it's not a peaceful statement, and again, I'm not wading into the foreign Israel, Gaza, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, all of those things aside. It's just another example of people saying, "Oh, when I say this is peaceful speech. When I burn down this post office, it's peaceful protest," right? But if the right wing do it, that's terrorism. Right. And I just think that it's interesting, right? If a right wing person was saying death to something that the left likes or whatever, they would say, you can't say that. That's wrong. Right. And so when they say things that are terrible or obviously contravening the law, naming any group and saying death to that group is you can't do that kind of stuff. Right. And yet he's saying, oh, yeah, it's totally peaceful. And I think that that's bonkers. That's absolutely bonkers. And people think that, oh yeah, that's fine. And he's a well-known kind of fringe person, and he's on the side of the communists, I think, right? And so I think all of that is very, very concerning, even that he's in the running for the NDP leadership. So there's wild and crazy stuff going on in Canada. Anyway, we got to say goodbye to the stream. This is going on longer than I intended it to anyway. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com, and we will catch, if you don't, that's cool. We'll catch